In just over 50 years on sale, the BMW 5 Series has established itself as the archetypal luxury sedan. Sports and luxury all in the one. Now, for the 8th generation, that leaves a lot for this car to live up to. But arguably the biggest change for this car is the fact that it now comes in fully electric flavour. But the car that we're most interested in is this new BMW i5. Does that still offer all the same luxury and sporting elements that we've come to expect from the BMW 5 Series nameplate? Let's go for a drive and find out. Where the BMW 520i opens the range at $114,900 with a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine, the next most expensive BMW i5 version is the eDrive 40, which is electric, and its price jumps sharply to $155,900. The flagship BMW i5 M60 xDrive jumps again to a whopping $215,900, though this variant is billed as a high-performance car in the range. All these prices are expressed before on-road costs. The 520i opens the range with equipment such as M Sport package and styling as standard, as well as a 19-inch set of wheels, a huge 14.9-inch touchscreen with a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster for the driver, a 12-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, heated seats with lumbar adjustment, head-up display, panoramic sunroof, and a suite of active safety technologies. With the i5 versions, you get larger wheels, adaptive suspension, a higher spec Bowers & Wilkins 17-speaker stereo, ventilated front seats, and metallic paint options. For the eDrive 40 variant, that's in addition to an electric powertrain comprising a single electric motor on the rear axle, which outputs 250 kilowatts and up to 430 newton meters. BMW says it's good for a 0 to 100 km/h sprint in 6 seconds. Even faster is the i5 M60 xDrive variant, which uses a dual-motor all-wheel drive system with whopping outputs totaling 442 kilowatts and 820 newton meters. Other details include a maximum driving range of 582 kilometers for the eDrive 40, and this comes from an 84 kilowatt-hour battery. The i5 can charge at up to 205 kilowatts on a DC fast charger, which is claimed to deliver a 10 to 80% recharge in just about 30 minutes. That's a lot of numbers and figures first up, so let's chat a little bit about styling. So up front, you've got a classic BMW kidney grille, but obviously it's closed off because it's an electric car and there's no motor behind that front grille to provide ventilation to. Around the side here, you've got these lighting signature, which does light up while you're on the move as well. Now, as I said, the i5 gets M Sport package as standard, so you'll see that in things like the wheels, the body kit, and this shadow line treatment around the side of the windows, and also inside the cabin with the dark headlining as well. Inside the cabin, you've got all manner of fancy materials and nice surfaces to get comfortable with, and this car gets merino leather as standard. You'll also see a carbon fiber effect trim down here on the dash. Now, this car offers me a nice driving position, and there's good electric adjustment of the steering wheel and the seat, and you also get memory as well. Now, I feel very nice and cosseted in this driving position, and it affords me a good view of the road overhead as well. It's very nicely appointed overall, and you've got great storage about the cabin as well. There's dual cup holders down here, a wireless phone charging slot, a dual opening center console bin down here, and obviously all the normal amenities like a glove box down here, door bottle holders, and all that kind of thing that you expect from a luxury car. The infotainment system uses a huge 14.9-inch display here on the dash, and it also joins with a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. Now, it's not the easiest system to get your head around. It will take a long time to get your bearings and figure out how to do certain things, but there is certainly no doubt a lot of equipment there and a whole lot of functionality as well. The layout arrangement of menu systems and the content-rich homepage are hard to get your head around, and it often takes multiple presses to do a simple task. Though the screen is touch capacitive, thankfully BMW has seen reason to keep the rotary controller, which gives you yet another way to control the system. That's in addition to the voice control, gesture control, and touch screen. There's also Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which works wirelessly. That's what I tend to use in BMWs these days, and it displays beautifully on the high-definition big screen. Boot space is accessed through a power tailgate, which opens to a 490-litre boot. That's 10 litres more than the smaller BMW 3 Series. The seats drop down thanks to a handy release from the boot, and note, this car does come with run-flat tyres, so there's no spare wheel. Under the boot floor, you can store a Mode 2 and Mode 3 charge cable, which comes standard with the car. Here we are in the back seats, and I've got a really decent amount of room behind my own driving position. My knees have a decent amount of knee room, but my foot room is a little bit constrained. This not being an SUV, you don't get that little bit more room, but there you go. My headroom is quite decent as well. I've got a nice amount of space for my 194 centimeter frame. Now, in terms of amenities, you've got dual USB-C chargers, air vents, you've got an iPad holder for the BMW specific display holder there, and nice things like shades for the windows. And also down in this fold down center armrest, you have dual cup holders. But overall, it's a very nice ambience back here and it lets in a lot of light, so you're very comfortable. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but as soon as you jump inside the BMW i5, it starts playing this electric sound in lieu of a petrol motor. And I'm not sure it's for me. I think it sounds a little bit too gimmicky, a little bit too sci-fi. But there you go, it is there. I'm sure you can probably turn it off if you actually wanted to. And there's also a series of driving modes that you can call up down here on the center console, which change the driving behavior of the car. And this car does have adaptive dampers as well. So when you put it in that sport mode, it will firm up and it will remain that much flatter when you're going through corners, but we'll leave it in the personal mode for now, which is effectively your normal mode. When you do drive an electric car, you sort of become a little bit more attuned to the noises that the car makes, whether it be the wind noise, tire noise from the road, and you get a little bit more of the feel for those kind of imperfections fighting their way through to the cabin. But this actually fares very, very well. I drove it on highways down here to the Mornington Peninsula, and it remained very quiet on that stretch. And even when we're driving on these little back roads now, you're not really feeling that much come through to the cabin, and you're not hearing that much either. So it's very impressive in that regard. Ride control on the whole is pretty well managed. It does pick up little imperfections here and there, and it does feel as though it's trudging through little potholes and that sort of thing. That sort of thing is translated through to the cabin, but it doesn't make it uncomfortable at all. It's just something that you're made aware of. Again, we are behind the wheel of the BMW i5 eDrive 40, which is billed as the mid-spec offering within the new BMW 5 Series range. Now, that's a mid-spec offering, and it only has a single electric motor on the rear axle, whereas the M specification that costs just over $200,000, that uses a dual motor setup. It's much more performance oriented, but the performance out of this car is very impressive in its own right, and certainly feels that little bit step up compared to the petrol model that you find at the entry level of the range. Anyhow, there is a very decent amount of acceleration out of this car, and it's very responsive as well. So you can sort of just get on the throttle, perform your little overtake without so much of a fuss. It's very impressive in that regard. A couple of the other things that you will realize is the fact that this has a very light steering character when you're just driving it around town. It makes it super easy to maneuver when you're driving through city streets and the like. One thing about this 5 Series is, even though it does have that light steering, which makes it easy to drive around town, there's not a lot of feel in the steering, and it just feels overly light for how big this car is. You don't get that much feel coming through the steering wheel, and it's not quite as direct as you've come to expect from older BMW models like the G30 and the F10 and that sort of thing. The single electric motor on the rear axle outputs 250 kilowatts and 430 Newton meters to the rear wheels, as I said, and the overtaking power from those outputs is actually very decent. Like, I'm not really wanting for that much more power in a mid-spec BMW 5 Series. Those people that want the performance-oriented car will go for the M60 model, but for the time being, I'm very happy with the performance out of this eDrive 40 specification. Let's talk energy efficiency. So this car is doing, at the moment, 18.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And that's pretty much exactly what you want to see out of a car of this size. Well done, BMW there. The i5 also has a version of its regenerative braking system. So when you do get on the anchors there, it will recuperate a bit of that energy and put it back into the battery for future use. One thing you've just got to love in a BMW 5 Series is the low slung driving position. Even though it's no SUV, I've got a great view of the road overhead. I feel like I'm sitting on a good perch, and there's great vision all about the cabin. And it's actually letting a nice ambience inside the cabin with this panoramic sunroof as well. In electric, guys, the BMW 5 Series experience in its 8th generation is frankly a lot like the old one. That is to mean hugely luxurious and spacious inside that cabin. The tech front is frankly bewildering, but that's exactly what you want from a high-dollar, high-specification car. And the driving experience is still dynamic. That's exactly what you want from BMW's 5er. Even as an electric vehicle, the BMW i5 puts a good foot forward for the brand's electric reputation. It's got respectable range, it's quick, and it has all the kit you need to keep moving included in the purchase price. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like it on YouTube and stay subscribed to get all of our future content. And if you want to know more about this BMW i5, be sure to read the full review on Drive.com.au.